Hello and welcome everybody, my name is Severin and today I would like to speak with you about fears. I think it's an appropriate moment to explore this topic a little bit more. It's something that's very alive for me, and normally we have fears being just put into one big basket. But let's look at it from the perspective of astrology, because we have 12 different zodiac signs, or we could say 12 different personality types, and that gives us much more differentiation of speaking about fear and how it is expressing within us, but also hopefully you understand others better, how they would probably tick different than you, and how something is really triggering them big times. So by the end of the talk, I will also express to you how you can see that within your own chart, how can you see where do you have fears, and also how to proceed from acknowledging your own fears. But let's speak about the fears in each zodiac signs first. I don't want to go to the chronological order which you normally would go, or like this way, or the other way. Either way, I want to speak about the four elements. So we have fire, we have earth, we have air, and we have water. So the four elements give me much more kind of a section to speak about the fears, because you will see entire 3 signs of fire, so Aries and Leo and Sagittarius, they are connected. So let's speak about the biggest fears of the fire signs. Let's speak about Aries. Aries' biggest fear is dependency. I mean, imagine an Aries who cannot just live spontaneously out of their own decision and has to be dependent. That's uncomfortable for every Aries personality. Also, if they would be perceived weak, that they cannot take their own decision, that they cannot, push their strength or their anger or their force through, like actually acknowledging for them that they are underneath actually vulnerable and also falling apart like everybody else. That's a big fear of any Aries personality. Also, if their achievements might be seen meaningless, that's a big uncomfortable sensation for any Aries personality. Let's go to Leo. Leo's biggest fear is if you are an average personality. Imagine that a Leo comes into a room and people are not noticing the Leo personality, or let's say even is invisible. I mean, that is almost like a personal humiliation. That is a big fear in any Leo personality, and that would feel very, very uncomfortable. If we go to the Sagittarius, then we would there have the biggest fear is emotional attachment. Because like for every Sagittarius, it's important to explore the world, to explore their own mind and search for meaning. And therefore, being attached to something or somebody that's so important for them would almost mean that they are put on a leash. So it's almost like a wild stallion is domesticated, and that's one of the biggest fear of any Sagittarius. Also, that an opinion of them would not be valued would feel very, very uncomfortable, because they are trying to learn so much in order to brighten the future, or like the meaning of humanity, and understanding other people and creating a moral system that's important for them. So that's Sagittarius. So from here, let's move to the earth signs. So let's start with Taurus. Taurus' biggest fear is change. Imagine like for a Taurus who is a creature of habits, that this chain of knowing what's the next day bringing, or repeating a ritual, suddenly an unexpected change is happening, is very, very uncomfortable. And with that linked is also the security or the financial insecurity. Suddenly like knowing that there is not enough money anymore on the bank account, or that you don't have a job with an income that's constantly flowing, that triggers the fears of any Taurus big times. If you dare go for Virgo, then the biggest fear would be chaos, because any Virgo personality is trying their best to perfect themselves, to bring perfection upon themselves, and therefore also a big fear for them is actually that fear of failure, or even on a deeper level, that they have not done everything they need, that they are not perfect, that they are having a fear of not being desirable. So that's what's very, very challenging for Virgo. If you would bring that further to the Capricorn, that is the fear of failure itself. Like every Capricorn would try everything to make their dreams come true and put in a lot of work. And the hardest for them would be if they have put in everything and then out of an unforeseen event, things are not working out, so that dream is not coming true, and that fear is so big that a lot of Capricorns actually helping others, they support others to make their dream come true, because they are so worried that if they would fail, it's maybe better that they don't even start at all with their dreams to accomplish them. So this is now the earth signs. Now let's go further to the air signs. If we speak about the Gemini's biggest fear is boredom. I mean, imagine if, like, you know, having a Gemini in the house sitting and it's raining for the next 30 days. Like, please, like, or you could even say the sun is shining for the next 30 days, you know, just please give me some variety, some diversity, something to, you know, my senses need to be stimulated, I need to have change. Like, boredom would be the worst. Like, having a monotonous life is like unbearable for any Gemini personality, and that leaves them being trapped. So that fear of being trapped in one place, in one mindset, and they have to jump out of that. So we see now we are with air signs. That means we are coming more in the domain of the mind, and that leads us to the next sign, Libra. Libra is the sign that is afraid of taking decisions. Like, there is always one decision to take, and that means one way is right and the other way therefore is wrong. So the fear is almost actually to take the wrong decision. That's the biggest fear that actually Libra has, and that's why they try to kind of push everything into one day to make everything possible, because they're actually very worried that they might take the wrong decision and that leads them up in a bad direction, and then they take no decision at all, or they cram everything into one place, which is not working out, obviously. Then another one is also that Libra is like trying to kind of fulfill other people's expectations. They try to be liked, so they have this kind of chameleon attitude, and that leaves them almost like in a fear-based mentality where they cannot even express themselves, because they're constantly so busy of trying to fit into an other person's mindset. So Aquarius then is the biggest fear of being trapped in having a closed space. That would be the worst for any Aquarius happening, because for them it's so important that they are themselves, that they are not losing their individuality. So therefore, let's say that they would have to obey somebody else's rule, that the problem would be that they actually feel, well, I cannot commit to somebody else, I have to decide myself. Like, if I would say and commit to something, then at least I made that commitment, but I cannot just follow anybody else. Like, that's a huge fear. So that's why they have to step out constantly of the norm, of the rules, and they have this tendency of breaking the rules, of being rebellious and going their own direction. So, and therefore there can be a lack of commitment just in order to stay true for themselves, because there is this big fear. So with this, we're coming to the last three signs, which are the water signs. So with Cancer, the big fear is solitude, because solitude means no emotional interactions, no confirmation, no caring, nothing to give and to make somebody else happy. And that is, like, for Cancer is very challenging, that there would be actually a possibility that they would be rejected. And also a negative criticism is actually very, very uncomfortable for Cancer. And a lot of times this fear that they would be a negative criticism leads them to actually not even express what they really feel, not sharing their emotions and holding back, and then even bringing more of that realization in that they are not acknowledged, they are not welcomed, and that feeling of being abandoned, which is very, very uncomfortable for any Pisces nature. Also, new situations, unfamiliarity in general, something that triggers fears in Cancer, which they have to embrace, which triggers actually emotions, and they have to step into that. So when we speak about the next sign, Scorpio, then we have powerlessness. So a Scorpio that has no power, that's a big fear for them. And what I mean with that is, like, it's like the fear of betrayal. Let's say you are connecting with somebody closely, and that the potential that this person would abandon you or betray you, that's like a huge abuse of trust. And that's so painful that's why there's this fear of this powerlessness. What if I give too much from myself and then I get hurt? What if there is actually this fear of humiliation that's so big that you actually close up on the first time, because the pain is, or the fear of pain is so big that you don't even want to open in the first place. And then you are ending up actually in a place where you never have been opening up to somebody in the first place because the fear has been so big. And then the last sign is Pisces. And Pisces, the biggest fear is rejection. I mean, imagine Pisces is connected with the universe, feels everything around them. So feeling rejected would be a disconnection of life, of their surrounding, and that's their biggest fear. And in a little bit, it's also like it's this Peter Pan personality that never wants to grow up, always wants to stay young, and it's always in the flow. It's always in that creativity where they're feeling alive, and therefore it's very uncomfortable for them to actually make a decision and bring that into daily life, make a decision and actually integrate that or bring that into something that you create. That's very, very uncomfortable for any Pisces nature. So with this, we have summed up the 12 zodiac signs, and I have given you an explanations of all the fears that are there. And I think fears are part of every person. Every personality has big fears inside of them. We could even say underneath there are existential fears, because every fear leads us to a point that we are feeling that we are dying, or a part of us is dying. Maybe not me as a physical body, but if I confront that, then the biggest fear is actually that something falls away. And that fear is so big that we are not willing to actually step into that. And this, what we can do with fear is actually, or what we have to do ultimately, is we cannot find a solution. We cannot understand it on a mental level and then confront it. That would be that we are rejecting a domain of our lives. But the opposite is actually necessary, that we coming in touch with fear, that we are slowing down, that we are, if we have the capacity, actually stay with that feeling and embrace that. And that doesn't mean that we have to love it or that we have to, hug it, but that we actually have to willingly give up, that we have to surrender to something that's stronger than ourselves, that takes us out of our functioning, controlling or understanding domain and coming to a place of the fragility, of vulnerability and discomfort. And from there, it's almost like falling apart. Something new can be created that's even stronger, even better, or hopefully let's not so say better, but much more flexible. So if you look at your chart, at your birth chart, then you would say the sun, the moon and the ascendant define what is your element. So let's say if you have sun, Leo, and you have the moon in Taurus, and you have an Aries ascendant, then you have 2 fire signs and you have 1 earth sign. So therefore you have both of these elements in you, but fire is probably a bit bigger, so you can connect with that fear from the fire signs and a little bit from the earth sign. Also, if you would be more complex, if you would look more nuanced at the birth chart, then you could say where Saturn lies, fears are, where Pluto is, fears lie, and where the South Node is, fears lie. Or you could even say a positive fear, like, that you have to step into would be the North Node. If this is becoming too complex for you, then please reach out for me. I would be more than happy to give you a birth chart reading. That's actually one of my biggest passions. I hope you have learned something, and I wish you a beautiful day. Thank you and goodbye.